But, you know, when ChatGPT 4 first came out, Goldman Sachs published a study that showed 44% of legal work will be replaced using AI. So that was one of the most hard-hit professions was law. And again, it's because we use words as what we are wordsmiths. You know, we're writing or speaking the words. That's what we do. So I think a lot of legal work will end up being replaced. It's some more drudgery type work. It's less skilled work. It's things like legal research or document review. There's the opportunity, though, for if we can be more efficient as lawyers, we can do a lot more, represent a lot more people, maybe at a lower cost. We have a huge problem in the United States of access to justice. Something like 80% of people with legitimate legal claims don't pursue them because they either can't afford a lawyer or they don't know how to get a lawyer.
Welcome to Humanity Unchained, a show about the future of life, reshaped by artificial intelligence. From practical insights on upskilling to existential talks about immortality, no topic is off limits. Welcome to the future with your hosts, Julia McCoy and Jeff Joyce.
Hello, welcome back to Humanity Unchained. I'm your host, Jeff.
We're going to leave that in. Hi, Jeff. Nice to meet you.
I'm your host, Julia McCoy, joined by
Jeff Joyce.
And we're here today with a very special guest, Gary. I had the honor of hearing Gary Marchant, Regents Professor at the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law at ASU. And I was at the AI Salon event last Thursday. We signed up for a demo with our company, Continent Scale. We were able to demo our tech. Ben Harper, our CRO, was there. And you opened, and your talk was so informative. And you had some really great perspectives, specifically for the legal industry, on how AI will impact that industry and the future of lawyers. Yes. And so we invited you here because I really wanted to get that perspective on our podcast. And we just got Gary to agree, I'm putting him on the spot right now, to be in our new book, Upskill, coming out this November. So we'll be sharing more with you on that. For those of you listening to the podcast, it's a book Jeff and I are writing. But we'll start off, Gary. Tell us a little bit about just your background and how you're one of the first in the nation to do what you've done with AI in the legal industry, especially in education. So talk through some of that.
Well, I started off as a kid wanting to be a geneticist after watching a documentary on genetics. I went all the way through and did my PhD in genetics, then decided I didn't like being a bench scientist. I love science, but counting fruit flies all day is kind of a boring job. So I was sort of looking for more of a profession to apply science. And I ended up in law, went to law school, worked as a lawyer for 9 years in Washington, D.C., and then decided to move into academia to sort of have more freedom to do issues I wanted to work on. And I came to Arizona State University, which I never set foot in Arizona before, but it had the only really major program in law and science at that time. So I joined that program, working on law and genetics initially. But then I became the director of the center and then sort of dealing with all different types of technologies, nanotech and neuroscience, and Internet of Things and internet. And then along comes AI. I got exposed to AI when I was asked to be co-PI on a grant proposal to the Future of Life Foundation. Elon Musk gave them $10 million to deal with existential risk from AI. And the project I was affiliated with got funded as a big project, and it was a whole bunch of leading people in AI from Facebook and DeepMind and IBM and academia and the military. And we met for 2 years to talk about how to prevent AI from destroying us at some point.
Wow, you were a part of that.
Yeah, and it was all new to me. I didn't understand. I thought they were speaking some other language the first couple of meetings, but I eventually, caught on a little bit.
What year was this?
It had been about, 2005 to 2007 maybe, or 2008.
Wow.
So that was sort of my first introduction to AI and got really interested in it, and then started thinking of other applications, got involved in autonomous cars and legal issues with autonomous cars and spoke at a bunch of conferences of that, did some work for the industry, became chair of a National Academy of Science committee on that. So I got really up on autonomous cars, and then sort of more broadly started teaching an AI course, AI law course. And I've been teaching that for 5 years. And then, I got involved with IEEE, and so I'm chairing a major IEEE standards group that's developing a standard for governing AI by any organization that's developing or using AI. got a bunch of grants to do how do you regulate or govern AI, and then doing all these things with the courts it's got announced this week on a national Center for State Courts Commission on AI in the courts. I'm going to be a member of. I'm a member of the Arizona Court Commission, and speak to judges all the time, about 20 times a year on AI in the law. So just a broad range of activities, and everybody wants to hear about AI in the law profession these days.
Absolutely. So what sort of use cases are you mainly focused on when teaching AI for lawyers or law in general?
A variety. So, a lot of them are sort of on the practical skills a lawyer can use with AI in doing their job. Law is a profession that's based primarily on words, on speaking or writing. And so AI is very relevant to anything basically a lawyer does. That can involve e-discovery. That was sort of the first major breakthrough use of AI. We do an annual conference on that I help organize. And, initially that wasn't all AI, but now, the technology assisted review is sort of the way e-discovery of large document sets is done using AI. So e-discovery was sort of the first, but now, due diligence, certainly litigation, writing briefs, doing legal research, contract review, a lot of different areas of the tasks that lawyers do. There's now tools available to make them more efficient and more productive using AI.
What about hallucinations? So that is the big elephant in the room when it comes to anything has to do with the law. We had somebody from a medical facility, I can't really say from where, but that was an issue for them as well. It's really hindering them from being able to take full advantage of AI because of the amount of hallucinations. We don't know at what percentage we're actually experiencing hallucinations in AI. So from that perspective, how do you either tell lawyers or kind of coach them through that hallucination process to solve it?
It's certainly a big problem, and it's been very embarrassing for some lawyers. So it was first this lawyer in New York City who filed a brief with a federal district court in New York that had 6 hallucinated case citations in. He couldn't believe that ChatGPT could generate both the citations, and then when he asked for the full case, it could just generate the 30-page case just on the spur of the moment. How could that be fictional? And he filed it with the court, and he said it's genuine, and it wasn't. And so he got sanctioned. And now I've found at least 10 other cases where lawyers have done the same thing. Some have gotten off with almost no penalty. Some have got suspended for a year or two, basically losing their livelihood. So it can be very severe. So this has happened quite a few times. At least it's been caught. I wonder, how many briefs have been filed with hallucinated cases that haven't been caught. But to me, it's a fairly easy fix. You could just check the citations, right? It's generating some content for you that includes some legal citations. It's very easy to check those to see if they're genuine. And it's just absolutely sloppy not to do that. That's just crazy not to do that, even if it wasn't using AI. So I think it just shows that some lawyers are very sloppy, take a lot of shortcuts, and they are getting caught with these hallucinated cases. The bigger concern for me is that AI doesn't really truly understand what it's writing about. It can be very effective. It can write really amazing things that can be really accurate in some ways. But the whole idea of sort of a stochastic parrot is just basically replicating sort of these words together without really knowing what it means. And so my concern is that lawyers will use this and it will totally misunderstand some area of the law or miss some important element. And that's much more difficult to catch, but that also is something you have to look at. Notwithstanding those kind of problems, the hallucinations and the lack of common sense of the AI, it can still greatly increase your productivity and your efficiency. It's been well shown that that's the case. And so if you use it correctly, it's going to be a great assist. But if you don't be careful, it can really embarrass you and perhaps lose your license to practice.
How do you feel about the future of where AI is going and how it will affect the legal industry as a whole? Because there's so many questions there. I think when I was there at the event, that was the question I saw come up a lot in the FAQs afterwards. I'm sure you see that all the time. How do you see that occurring?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's astonishing how fast it's been taken up in law, just like many other areas of the world and business. But when ChatGPT 4 first came out, Goldman Sachs published a study that showed 44% of legal work will be replaced using AI. So that was one of the most hard hit professions was law. And again, it's because we use words as what we are wordsmiths. You know, we're writing or speaking the words. That's what we do. So I think a lot of legal work will end up being replaced. It's the more drudgery type work. It's less skilled work. It's things like legal research or document review. That's really boring work. I remember as a first or second year associate going to Minnesota with 8 of my young colleagues, young lawyers, and we basically sat there all day and went through thousands of documents, you know, just bleary-eyed looking at these documents, looking for something relevant. AI can do that so much more efficiently, so much more cheaply, and it's not fun work. The more high-skilled level jobs, there's still going to be a huge role for humans in there, even if they are using AI. But there's no question there'll be a compression of work in terms of some types of tasks, particularly what young associates do, is going to be replaced, is being replaced as we speak. There's the opportunity, though, for if we can be more efficient as lawyers, we can do a lot more, represent a lot more people, maybe at a lower cost. We have a huge problem in the United States of access to justice. Something like 80% of people with legitimate legal claims don't pursue them because they either can't afford a lawyer or they don't know how to get a lawyer. So this could allow lawyers to now represent those people because they can do their job much more efficiently and make it much more cost effective for those people to hire a lawyer. So there's actually could be an expansion of work because things that currently can't be done at the current rates of lawyers could now be done. In addition, it's raising all kinds of substantive issues, of new issues for lawyers to work on. You know, is an autonomous car? What's regulation of that? What happens if there's an accident? Medical AI, what happens if something goes wrong? Who's liable? All those type of issues are really new and novel and fascinating, and those are fun things to work on. And that's for lawyers to do, and that's new areas of work being opened up. So it's sort of a trade-off. There's a lot of the boring drudgery type work is going to be replaced, and frankly, I think that's not so bad, but there's a lot of new opportunities for lawyers too who are able to take advantage of this technology. If you try to ignore it and just sort of say, I'm not going to learn AI, you're going to be left behind, I think. And there's unfortunately some in the legal profession are like that. A lot of people go into law because they don't like science or engineering or technology. They just like history and, you know, economics maybe, and they just want to deal with those kind of domains without learning technology. And that's no longer going to be possible in the practice of law. Just like the practice of medicine. You have to learn technology if you want to be a doctor today.
I feel like I already know the answer to this.
Yeah.
Because we've already kind of like talked about it a little bit. But what advice would you give to either existing lawyers or new up and coming lawyers that are currently going to school when it comes to AI, as far as like upskilling and things like that?
Well, first of all, I think it's a really great opportunity for younger lawyers. I mean, if you're an existing lawyer in a law firm, I know some of them who have learned AI and become incredibly proficient at it, and it's very impressive. But the vast majority of practicing lawyers, just like sort of practicing doctors, are busy people. They've maybe got families, they got other commitments. They just don't have time to learn a lot of new stuff. Mm-hmm. And so they're sort of going to get left behind, I think. And it really opens the door, I think, to younger lawyers who particularly have lived with the computers their whole life, unlike older people like me, sort of learned to use a computer at some point in my life. But these people, younger people, have had computers all their life. They're often very proficient at it. When I get a new phone, I give it to my kids to set up because they can just do it like that. I can't. And so these younger people are much more prone to understanding this technology. And if they put the effort into it to really understand it, they're going to put themselves in a huge advantage position as they go into law firms and other jobs because they will know this technology. And so we encourage them to take courses, to get involved in projects, to use the technology in their courses, and come out of law school ready to go as someone who's very comfortable with AI.
When it comes to things like casework or any type of daily activities for lawyers, is there a specific tool stack that you recommend, or is he just using like ChatGPT, maybe Opus from Claude or anything like that?
It's a huge proliferation of different tools that are available, different vendors selling different products. The two big legal technology companies are Westlaw, owned by Thomson Reuters, and Lexis. They both moved really quickly into the generative AI space. They were using machine learning in their earlier search systems, but now they've added in machine learning tools into their platforms. So those, I think, are what a lot of lawyers will end up using, but there's all kinds of other tools for things like contract analysis. when I was a young lawyer doing a big deal, a big transaction, we would deal with these Fortune 100 companies who would have literally tens of thousands of contracts. And to do due diligence, technically you should probably look at them all, but it was not feasible or cost effective. So we would have a rule. We'd look at 1 in 100 random contracts, or sometimes 1 in 10 in a smaller company. And you just couldn't, get a whole grasp on what the possible liabilities for this company was, because you're only looking at a small fraction of their contracts. You can now use these AI tools to look at 100%, and have those tools identify for you as a human lawyer which ones are really important for you to look at. And so it allows you to be a much more effective and competent lawyer in a way if you know how to use those tools. So there's just a lot of different opportunities. It's basically mind-boggling to keep on top of it. There's all these people you can imagine on social media who are announcing new tools on a daily basis, and who can keep track of them all, right? I certainly can't. And it's fascinating. My students, they keep on coming up to me, hey, have you looked at this yet? Have you used this yet? And I say, no, I've never even heard of them. But these students are experimenting with all these different tools that they're finding on the internet, on social media and so on. And I think that's great, because some of these will be better than others. We're in a real phase of testing a lot of different things, and I'm sure there'll be a big shakeout eventually, and we'll get down to a much smaller number of vendors and tools. But right now there's just a proliferation of law-specific AI tools. Many of them built on things like ChatGPT, but a lot of them freestanding.
I'm sure I'm going to get some ads for some of them as soon as this conversation's done. I'm going to open up Facebook and see an ad.
Yeah, for sure.
A big concern that I've had, or I've heard from many people that were in my industry as well, content writing, content generation, that was human. Now it's muchly AI augmented, is how do we actually copyright this stuff? Whenever AI generates it, there is no, it's the Wild West right now. I don't think even the U.S. Attorney's Office and the trademark offices are not built to support this. How do you see that changing, copyright law?
So it's an area of active churning right now, and active consideration. So initially, we had our patent and trademark office say that an AI invented creation could not get a patent, and our copyright office said an AI created document or copyright material could not get copyright. And those decisions were upheld by courts, so they could stick with that position if they wanted to. But they quickly realized there's this proliferation of creativity that's being made using AI. And if there's no intellectual property for that, that's just going to throw that all in the Wild West, and it's going to have all kinds of adverse consequences, actually. For example, on the patent side, people are using AI now to discover drugs. You may have heard, recently they discovered some new antibiotics, which I don't think we've had any new antibiotics for 40 years. And so AI's discovered these, but to get it approved, you have to go through clinical testing, which is, $1 billion or more. Nobody's going to do that if you can't get a patent for that drug. So if we don't allow patents for these AI discoveries by, I guess, the company that was in charge of the discovery, we're going to basically block a lot of innovation, which is exactly not what the IP system is supposed to do. It's supposed to encourage innovation. So it's interesting that both the Copyright Office and the Patent Office have gone back to reconsider this. So they both have proceedings ongoing right now. The Patent Office has just taken comments all spring and actually extended it, I think, into early July to how should we deal with this? What kind of human role does there have to be for an AI to get a patent? And then same on the copyright side. The copyright side asked for public comments and got hundreds of comments in, and have promised by the end of 2024 to come out with a new policy on this. And so those will be really interesting to see what the agencies do. They're both sort of dealing with the same fundamental problem that traditionally invention has been by a human. AIs are now doing some of that work, but to give it no protection whatsoever would actually be counterproductive to innovation. And so maybe they have to come out with better policies or more sort of nuanced policies. And that's what both agencies are currently considering. It's going to be fascinating to see what comes out by the end of the year.
That's interesting. So by the end of this year, we'll have new rulings from those offices. Huh.
I would have never even thought of the medical side when it comes to copyright. Yeah, like trademarking.
Well, that's more on the patent.
Yeah, I wouldn't even
attaches to funding.
Yeah.
So that's a complete block.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have thought of that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a huge issue and a ton of cases going on right now of when you train an AI system with data, is that a copyright violation?
Right.
When you scrape the data off of the internet sites and authors' pages and so on, is that a copyright violation? And there's at least a dozen cases in courts around the United States right now considering those, and those decisions will all be made in the next year or two too. And that's going to provide a lot of clarity on sort of what are the rules for scraping data. If the New York Times has their way, they have asked for ChatGPT and other large language models to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Because they violated copyright law. And there's a provision under copyright law, if you use a technology or a tool a program to violate copyright, you have it destroyed. And that's what the New York Times is asked to have. Could you imagine if the court in the United States orders ChatGPT to be destroyed? I mean, that would be, I think, catastrophic. So many people are using that now. So I don't think a court would do that. I think that was just sort of leveraged by the New York Times. But the outcomes of these cases will be pretty important for a lot of different actors.
Yeah.
I remember when artists went up against Midjourney.
Yeah.
That did not go well for the artist.
No. But a lot of those cases are still pending.
Yeah.
And, my personal opinion is I don't think they are a copyright violation, but I do think there's a problem if you, for example, say, give me some drawings in the style of a certain artist. And then it will generate, 10,000 drawings that look just like that artist did it and basically undermine that artist's market. If it's, or write me a novel in the style of John Grisham, you're sort of stealing their unique personality in their art. And that to me is problematic. I don't know if it's a copyright violation or some other thing, but and I know some companies, like I think OpenAI said they no longer will answer those prompts. If you say you want something in the style of somebody, they apparently won't do that anymore. But that would be an existential threat to those artists and those authors and so on. If I can just generate stuff that looks like it's yours, and so why should I pay for your real stuff? I can get it free from these AI systems.
And that's interesting because I think of my own journey writing. I studied the best authors. You could say I almost copied their work, but to me it was like inspiration. So it's have we done this before?
Yeah.
The patterns here are so similar.
Right. The human artist or the human author reads and looks at a lot of things and learns from that. Why can't the AI system do that?
Exactly.
The difference is it sort of memorizes everything, and then can spew out a specific style that represents or resembles a certain individual human artist. So that's more than we can probably do as humans. So it's really creating some new issues from the legal side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to try to combat and say because even if it's a slight variation on whatever it is, if it's a painting, a piece of work, whatever it is, that's still technically an original work. Yeah. Even if it's changed slightly.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of a doctrine in copyright of derivative works. If it's derived from that first one, there's a recent Supreme Court case on that. So there's a lot of complicated issues, but it's going to create a lot of work for lawyers, which from a law professor's perspective is great. Our students going to get a lot of work out of it.
It's a great time to be an AI-powered lawyer.
Yes, exactly. Or AI-enabled lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want a lawyer AI bot.
Not
anytime soon.
Scary.
Yeah. But that's another big issue that's facing the states right now. We have this thing called unauthorized practice of law, that, you can't practice law unless you've been trained as a lawyer. It's somewhat protectionist of the legal profession to keep out other people. But there's also a legitimate reason for it, so that you get reliable advice. And now there's bots being created that are AI bots that will basically do the legal work for you that are not admitted to practice law. Is that unauthorized practice of law or not? And so there's actually some cases going on that right now. States, bar associations are considering this, how to draw the lines of what is practice of law that has to be done by a human versus what can be done by a machine. And it's a very complicated question again.
Yeah, that's fascinating. If you self-represented yourself, if you're gonna go to bat for yourself, if you use an AI bot, I highly wouldn't recommend that. But
and of course you're allowed to represent yourself, but if you're using another person, that's a practice of law. What if it's a machine you're using?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. And obviously you're using your word processing to write your briefs, so we've used machines all the time, but where does it cross the line to be intelligence and sort of like a human, sort of?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been a great episode. I think it's a good place to wrap, and then have Gary come back for the book interview and go even deeper.
Oh yeah,
great.
Sounds great.
Plug there for Upskill coming this fall. Thank you so much, Gary. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Great.
Where can people get in touch with you?
I'm at ASU, Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. Website's easily accessible. So
perfect.
It's the best place.
Awesome. Well, bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening.